Hello, Garland Nixon here with my partner in crime, Dr. Jim Kavanagh, and there's false flags of flying in the wind and all other kind of miscreant behavior going down, but we're going to handle it. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here with Dr. Jim Kavanagh, and there's all kind of craziness going on, and we've got a good bit to talk about. Let's get started, I think, with, the person now who has really become a superstar, and it's not just because, people like her, because they do. It's not just because she's pretty, because she's very pretty. It's because she is addressing a subject that desperately needs to be addressed, and she is addressing it in a way that's quite frankly horrifying, because half the time you're afraid that the Zionists are going to try to do her in, Candace Owens. And I think this Candace Owens phenomenon that's going on really expressed itself at this TPUSA, Turning Point USA event, where Ben Shapiro blasted Tucker Carlson and whoever, and then Tucker Carlson came out and I think did a great job of not blasting Ben Shapiro, doing a great job. But we're seeing wherein the Democratic Party kind of hit the rock, shall we say, to use a maritime analogy, slammed on the rocks of Zionism in November of 2024. We're seeing, really, I think the Republicans are doing it. It's more pronounced. It's more out in the open, and I think it's healthy. Your thoughts on what seems to be like the complete destabilization of American traditional party politics as a result of this sick and twisted fealty to Zionism. Jim Kavanagh.
Yeah, well, I'm all for it. I think that American party politics is being upended by the issue of Zionism, and I think it's great. And it's, as you say, it's really hotter on the right now than in the Democratic Party. The conservatives, the most popular voices of the conservative movement over the past 8 years, Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, really taken off and are not backing down, and they're criticizing Zionism in Israel. I mean, what the things that Tucker Carlson said at that TPUSA thing were really wonderful. He did a thing about Islamophobia and why should we hate Muslims? This is not, why are we doing this? This is crazy. He was very, very good. And Candace Owens is not backing down on taking crap from Ben Shapiro or Erica Kirk or whatever. She's going forward. Let's look at this. This is a crime that we all saw committed. It's, she's not backing off from this baloney about, you can't question it because you'll be upsetting the grieving widow. Well, question the Kennedy assassination. That doesn't make it, Jacqueline Kennedy didn't say, no, don't question it. In fact, she questioned it herself. So anyway, this is, but and on the Democratic side, it's clear, the Democrats have abandoned now the idea of doing a quote unquote autopsy of what happened in 2024, because everybody knows what happened in 2024. They know, it's clear now that, I don't think it's the only thing by any means, but and I don't know that it would have changed it if that Kamala would have won, but it's clear that Kamala lost a lot of votes and votes in swing states because of her position on Gaza, because of the fact that she was a supporter of Biden's genocidal policy on Gaza. So the Democrats don't, there is certainly in the Democratic base is over this, and they're going to, this is one of the things for them that they're going to insist on their candidates, I think, abandoning at least Israel and Gaza and what Israel is doing in Gaza, if not Zionism itself. But really, anti-Zionism now is, as I said 2 years ago, I hope this happens, and it's happened. There's an anti-Zionist political movement on the right and the left. But the Democrats on the national discursive stage are kind of avoiding the issue for the moment. They're letting it's much more heat and much more direct, blatant divisiveness on the Republican ranks. The Democrats know it's there, but they're trying to fake it out. They're trying to kind of ride it out, and they're going to play this little game, where I'm not taking, every candidate's going to say, I won't take any money from AIPAC. They'll take money from the 5 other Zionist organizations that will pop up and give them the money. Taking money from AIPAC does not mean you're not a Zionist and you won't support the Zionists. This really now has to be, in both parties, if people on the conservative right and people on the left that's being hidden by the Democratic Party have to demand of any candidate, you must renounce Zionism. You must say, I'm not a Zionist, and you must not send any more weapons or military aid of any kind to Israel. And, you have to support, and you can't support this crappy Trump Gaza rebuild ceasefire. There's no ceasefire here, and there's no plan to do anything else. But Israel has already annexed over half of Gaza. This is 47, 48 all over again, and we've got to renounce it. So everybody has to be on that page. And, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out over the next 2 years between the elections in 2026 and in the primaries and what happens. It's great that this is happening, that this debate and this division over this question. This is a division of the House over the question of Zionism. It needs to happen. We need to help it happen. As I said before, only one of the few things that's going to stop the Israelis is if the Americans withdraw political support. That's going to take a lot to see happen, and we got to try and help it happen.
One of the things that I think is interesting is in Europe, one of the things I've just said is, they had the illusion of democracy. It's clear that the fascism of Franco and the fascism of Hitler and the fascism of all of these other people never went anywhere. It just kind of hid a little bit. It put on a friendly suit and walked around in a nice dress and just walked around in public and pretended like it didn't exist. And as soon as there was a little pressure, as soon as the people said, hey, we don't like what's going on in COVID, it came out in black with a black uniform on and beat people over the head. As soon as the people said, hey, what's up with maybe the Ukraine conflict, maybe Zionism, whatever, it came back out, right? And it's just now people can see in Europe that they never really had a liberal democracy like they thought. What we're seeing is Europe for what it really is. And I think what's good to me is even Americans, this is the truth. It's not like this is something new. The truth and reality of things are being exposed. And I think what a lot of people are learning, something you and I probably already knew. And that is that the government works for the ruling elite. It don't work for you. It doesn't work for the working classes. It's not representing you. It's representing them. And when it comes down to it, as an example, the Democrats, hey, we want you to not represent this genocide and Zionism. We're the masses. Screw you. We'd rather lose. Trump, hey, Trump, America first. Forget Israel. Screw you. I don't work for you. So when it comes down to it, the politicians, these so-called middlemen, when the people say, I don't want something, they'll pretend that you got rights and all of that. But when it comes down to it, what Trump is basically saying, fools, you already elected me. I don't need your vote now. This is Miriam Adelson. This is who I work for, not you. You can deal with it. Who cares? And it's not, and I'd say that about Trump. It ain't Trump. It's the system is saying we're already in. So what? What are you going to do? Vote us out and vote the Democrats in? Just go right ahead. You're going to get, they work for the Zionists too, in case you haven't figured it out, suckers.
Yeah, look, that's the case. As Jimmy Carter said, it's a oligarchy with unlimited bribery. And, the Zionist billionaires are that scene with Miriam Adelson the other day with Trump saying that, but he said that before the election. I put it in one of my articles about Trump's free speech fandango. He got up beforehand. Everybody should have not. If you were fooling yourself, if you didn't understand this. That's what I say about Obama. You fooled yourself. You didn't know what he was going to do. Trump got up and said the Adelsons were in the White House more than anybody else. I did what they wanted. I even gave them the Gaza. They didn't ask for Gaza for the Golan Heights, and I gave them the Golan Heights. So as if it's his to give. But that's Trump. But the business of Europe is important. I don't want to say they didn't have liberal democracy. What happened was for all of the Cold War years until the 90s, I mean, it was anti-communism. And and the communist and socialist movements in those countries, Italy, France, these were strong movements, and anti-fascist movement in Spain. So they needed to mollify the working class. And in order to mollify the working class, they had to have real social democratic reforms. They have universal health care. They have labor standards that are very different. And they had freedom of speech. That was a big thing for the West. Look, we have freedom of speech. And it was a real, true pole of attraction for people. The West has freedom of speech. The Russians are banning the Beatles. I mean, the Soviets are banning the Beatles, whatever. And so that was but once the Soviet Union went away and the neoliberalism started to come in, which the socialist parties in Europe joined in with Reagan and Thatcher, and the neoliberalism started to come in, and it started to eat away at the industrial base and all of that, once the Soviet Union, all of a sudden, they didn't need the freedom of speech anymore. Their freedom of speech now is something that works against them. Now, they're not interested in, they don't care about, they don't need to fend off the example of a post-capitalist society in Russia, because it's not, Russia doesn't call itself post-capitalist. Now, that was for the past 20 years. So we can, and right now they're just giving up on all the famous civil rights and human rights that's supposed to represent it, that the West was supposed to represent it in contradistinction to communist societies or socialist societies. And during that whole period, they were able to change governments, regimes around the world, et cetera, et cetera. So they felt they felt very strong and confident enough. And now they're in a position where they're threatened because, first of all, there's a post-capitalist society, or at least professing.
You got BRICS.
Post-capitalist society in China, which is and the BRICS movement, which is developing. So economically they're threatened, and politically they're threatened by the fact that the working classes know that life is getting worse. It's no longer, and in the United States, which did not have a strong social democratic society at all, but had the minimum Social Security and Medicare, and now, but you had this kind of idea that it's an upward mobility. As you grow up, you're going to have a better life, but that's all gone now. So you have a threat. Nobody believes in the system anymore. Nobody believes not only what you say, but nobody believes that you're going to deliver a better life for people. Things are getting worse, and there's no possibility of you can't have, the average age of buying a home in 1950 was like 30 or 25 or something. Now it's 40 if you can get a home, and people can't have homes, they can't have families, and there's no ending that. You can see very clearly the wealth inequality and the concentration of wealth. 10 people own 50% of the wealth of the country, or 100 people own 50% of the wealth of the country. It's absurd, and it's destroying. So in that situation now, the political elites are threatened and have to shut down and censor free speech. They have to shut down and censor conversations. They're this very dangerous thing. Democrats and Republicans are on this thing about, we've got to do away with Section 230 of the which allows internet platforms to have free speech. Really, they do away with Section 230 of the Communications Act and make the internet platforms responsible for everything that everybody on them says. It'll do away with social media, and they're all going to do this on the basis of child pornography or anti-Semitism or hate speech or whatever. This is coming, and it's a very dangerous situation. We are in a I want to say pre-fascist, but it's beyond pre-fascist at this point. That we're in the initial stages of a transformation to fascism, and everybody has to fight this, and it's very difficult to figure out a way of doing it.
Yeah, I think one of the good things that's happening, I don't know, or it's just a natural thing that's happening, for those of us who have been preaching that they don't represent you. George Carlin's been saying that, right? These people don't represent you. Okay. And now even the people who believed it, no, we're America, the government's looking out for us. Biden's going to look out for us. Trump's going to do a great job and look out for us. Obama's going to say, hope and change, all these things are coming to say, well, we don't want this. And they're starting to get the spread. Who cares about that? This is what you're going to get. Yep. And what's interesting now is Trump named an anti-Semitism czar. Have you seen this guy?
Yeah, I did.
And I'm like, so I'm a black person. And I'm not saying we need a racism czar, right? But I'm not. What you what a racism czar do, right? Number one, but number two, Jews own slaves. You didn't have a czar for the people that own slaves before you have a czar for the people who actually were slaves. None of it makes sense, right? But it's right. What this is the other part. This whole fake anti-Zionism means anti-Semitism thing. Everything's anti-Semitism. It's like, hey, how's the weather going to be today? Anti-Semitic. That's that's what next we're going to turn on the weather. Okay, we've got anti-Semitism followed by a front of anti-Semitism coming across Canada. So put on your yarmulkes and get ready for the weather. Right. People can see it for what it is. And I would add this. This is going to, I've been saying this for a while. Man, this is going to create not just an anti-Zionist backlash. It's going to create already is a nasty, real nasty anti-Jewish. This thing of calling everything anti-Semitism is going to is creating anti-Semitism in a way that will eventually be frightening. And those of us who actually look at it and say, okay, that's discrimination, that's not, and we use that based on reality, are saying, man, you guys are doing something. Yeah. You people are fools for letting them do this to you. Anyways, Jim.
Yeah, look, and that's deliberate. Zionism needs anti-Semitism. Zionism, the fundamental appeal of Zionism since 1948 and among liberal Zionists and secular Zionists is the idea of survival, that we're gonna die if they're gonna come kill us if we don't have our state. This is a lifeboat. This is our safe room. Israel is the safe room for Jews in the world, because otherwise they're all out to get us. So you have to, and the Zionists have said it over and over again. Anti-Semitism works on behalf of Judaism. As I said, on behalf of Zionism. The other element that I said the last time, that will undermine Zionism in Israel is the emigration of Jews from Israel. They need to get Jews to come to Israel. And the way they do that is to foster anti-Semitism and to create, Charlie Kirk said, oh, these guys are proving the stereotypes by trying to control me and by berating me. Netanyahu gets up and says, I demand. He gets up and says, I demand that countries stop these protests and do this. Netanyahu is getting up and demanding that every country in the world do what he says, do what he wants, trash their own free civil rights in the countries. That doesn't look very good. Donald Trump gets up with Miriam Mel says, look who controls me. Look at the rich Jews who control me. This doesn't look very good. You've got 2 years of killing people. And right now, you're killing people in Gaza. There's no ceasefire. There's a slowdown, but not a ceasefire. Israel is killing as many people at once in Gaza every day. Just blew up a
wedding
with a wedding in it yesterday. Blew people to bits in Gaza. That was a violation of the ceasefire. Worse than the Bandi massacre. But things like the Bandi massacre are things that are raw meat for the Zionists. And that's what they're doing. They're saying, as we have to come in. Mossad has to go to Australia and investigate this. And Australia has to stop allowing pro-Palestine demonstrations. And England has to stop allowing pro-Palestine, because that's it. Look at this. This proves that Zionism is anti-Semitism. This is, and it's, many Jews in the world are standing up against this and will continue to stand up against this. But Israel and Zionism needs anti-Semitism to feed it. That's and to prove it's the only thing that they can use now to kind of try and justify the existence of Zionism is, you better get in the lifeboat or else they're going. And anybody who doesn't like what we're doing to the Palestinians, they're trying to kill us. You see, that's really what's happening. You know it. All of us Jews know that if what they really mean when they say we don't want you to slaughter Palestinians is that they want to slaughter the Jews. That's what they're saying. And they have to kind of make that appear to be true. So they will do anything to make that appear to be true. And they'll take advantage of anything to make it appear to be true. And that's what we're in now. And we can't back off on it. Nobody can back off on this. Terrible what happened in Bundy. The actors who did what happened in Bundy were from the political groups that Israel and the United States supported and funded and helped in Gaza, in Syria, for the purpose of overthrowing the Syrian government on behalf of Israel. ISIS was a pawn of Israel and the United States. And that's perfectly clear now. And so, given what's happened in Syria, so, they're complaining about, they created a situation where they deliberately funded and helped, they literally helped, and they acknowledged it, ISIS in Syria. And now if it turns against them, you see? So they didn't mind funding anti-Semitic ISIS when they were going after Bashar Assad, and they knew very well, that may come after us, but that'll help us sell Zionism. And that's what's happening. And this is also why, given the complete lapse and disappearance of confidence in the official narrative, anything like this happens, the first thing most people are going to say is this is a false flag. And in like the Bondi thing. And in a certain sense, structurally, it's a false flag. Whether the Mossad actually paid these guys to do it or manipulated, the fact is that political movement that those people, if it's true, they're ISIS represented, is a political movement that was put into the world by Zionism. It is something that Zionism created to attack itself. And this is the situation that we're in now. So it's going to be very nasty because and look at what's happening in Britain and Australia. They're going to ban every Palestinian demonstration. They have these kids. They're not just kids. The people in Britain who are on hunger strike over this, and people are going to just get rounded up. And they're going to try and intimidate us to stop supporting Palestine because you're an anti-Semite if you support Palestine. And if you oppose Zionism, no, I'm anti-Zionist. I will be anti-Zionist. Globalize the Intifada and free Palestine. And everybody has to be more militant about that and more assertive about that.
Well, let's look at this as an example. Okay. Misinformation exploits confusion and grief after the Bondi attack, right? Misinformation. The grief is barely taken, yet one of the worst terror attacks in Australia is being hijacked, exploited through social media misinformation and disinformation, right? Look, several posts have falsely linked Israel to the attack. Here's the thing about it. For starters, after COVID, as soon as I see the word misinformation, I'm like, okay, well, traditionally, everything that I've seen that was misinformation, within 6 months, you can get rid of the mis part of it, right? Number one. Yeah. Number two, as you said, for starters, what did they kill? 16 or 20 people? Bad. I hated it. Don't want to see people killed. But they just dropped that. That's a daily occurrence. You killed tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, tens of thousands of children. And if I say that's a terrible thing, I'm an anti-Semite for saying, oh my God, you're slaughtering hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians for no reason. You're delighting in it. You're raping people and then having protests. that the
Maybe
rapists
help,
maybe have pro-rape protests in Israel,
I
right?
know, yeah.
Okay, and I'm an anti-Semite when I'm like, hey, pro-rape is a protest, probably not a good look. Hey, you just hate Jews, right?
Yeah.
So I would start by saying, how can Israel slaughter hundreds of thousands, and then when 20 people are killed, say the whole world has to come to an end?
Yep.
Number one. Number two, ISIS is your boy. In the same way that Al Qaeda was our person, our group, and when Al Qaeda hit the towers, allegedly, everybody said, "Well, they're our group. Shouldn't we be suspicious? Shouldn't we suspect a false flag?" Wait a minute. ISIS attacked Russia at that music concert. ISIS is always attacking Iran. ISIS attacks the U.S. and Israel's adversaries, but never attacks the U.S. and Israel. And every now and then, when it does, it's very conveniently works out. Listen to this. The one time they supposedly attacked Israel, Israel immediately blamed it on Iran.
Yeah.
Thanks, ISIS. Thanks for giving us cat's belly. U.S., you got to attack Iran because ISIS now, who just attacked Iran recently, now works for Iran.
Yeah.
This is a very convenient pawn. So when you look at that, when I look at that, knowing, for instance, that Israel, as admitted by MI5 and MI6, was complaining because the Israeli embassy, they said, didn't have enough. They said the Israeli embassy didn't have enough protection and security in London. So they did a false flag and they ignited a car bomb on the street next to the Israeli embassy in London. And then they blamed, now how convenient is this? Then they blamed a Palestinian support group in London that they hated and wanted done away with anyway, right?
Yeah, sure.
And Israel, MI5, MI6 later came out and admitted the whole thing. So why wouldn't somebody look at that and say, well, your history of doing these things. Well, wait a minute. Would Israel do it? What about October 7th? Did they kill their own people on October 7th? It's pretty clear they did. So why wouldn't somebody, a reasonable person, forget false flags and conspiracy theorists, look at that and say, based on the history of what the Zionists have done, it is not unreasonable to assume that they did this. Whether they did or not, neither of us know. But it's not a crazy conspiracy theory to look at it and say, well, they've done this kind of crap before.
Yeah, they have history of doing it. They did it in Egypt, the Lavon affair. They did it in Iraq. Precisely because they had to get the Jews of those countries to leave and come to Israel. They did it, I think, in Argentina. So there's a history of that. Exactly. You can't get away from that. So, I don't know what happened in Bundy. I know, I tend to believe that these two people were ISIS sympathizers of some kind. But again, that doesn't, and as I say, it's structurally the case, because as you say, ISIS is Israel's boy. I mean, Israel absolutely supported ISIS in Iraq. They said it. They admitted it. The defense minister, oh yeah, when ISIS, we take care of them. When they get hurt, we help them. We put them back into battle. We stitch them up and throw them back into battle. And they said, well, would you do that for? Because we're great humanitarians. That's why we do that. Would you do that for Hezbollah? No. That's different. So again, and that's and ISIS. It's like, again, ISIS has nothing to do with Iran. Iran is totally different situation, different kind of Muslim Islamic ideologies, and they're against each other. And so, this is something that the Al Qaeda ISIS groupings were created by Israel and the United States to fight against the Muslim regimes, or the regimes in Muslim lands that were the biggest supporters of the Palestinians and the biggest threats to Israel, which were Iraq and Libya and Syria. And they were proxies of the Americans and the Israelis on that. They were proxies of Zionism and American imperialism. So that's who did the job at Bondi Beach, then it's the proxies of Zionism that did the job at Bondi Beach. So this is whatever the two people in it were thinking they were doing, that's what they were doing. So, this is something that we're in a nasty, it's going to get nasty about this, because they're going to use this. They are using it successfully because the governments, the Western governments, are completely complicit in it. They've been complicit in the slaughter of Gaza. They've been complicit in the ongoing slaughter of Zionism since 1947, 48. And they are going to try and shut us up. And they're going to try and they are putting people in jail. And Great England, UK is putting people in jail for expressing opinions against Israel and pro-Palestinians. And everybody from Hillary Clinton to Marco Rubio wants to do that here, and they will do it. And the Labour government in Britain is doing it, and the governments of Germany is doing it, etc. So this is a big fight we have on our hands to try and save some kind of free speech and to try and advance the cause of anti-Zionism that has grown up in the United States in the past couple of years and in the Western countries.
I also think we're seeing the MAGA movement as it exists, veer away from Trump. And as I've said, for people who are listening now who haven't heard, this is my feeling on MAGA. MAGA was the Tea Party. The Tea Party started off being pissed about the bailouts, about the Bush and Obama bailouts. That's when the Tea Party formed. And the Tea Party was pissed, and they were kind of forming, figuring out what they were. Were they populist? Are they went some stupid things and some things I might agree with. Okay, and Trump comes along and commandeers them. Hey, this is MAGA. And the Tea Party, that Tea Party is what, and this is my opinion, lined up behind Trump. And the liberals all just called it, they dismissed it. MAGA is nothing but a cult of personality. I never thought it was. I thought Trump came in and saw an opportunity. Not that Trump's an opportunist. He saw an opportunity. And he jumped all over it, as opportunists will. And but I think even Trump, he was like, yes, I could kill somebody on 7th Avenue and I could commit a genocide and they still follow me, right? But whatever. But now I think we're seeing a reality, and that is, it's not, I don't think it is a cult of personality. And we're seeing inside of MAGA a growing group of people who are saying, we voted for something, Donald Trump, and your job was to give us what we voted for. We didn't just vote for you so that we could take whatever you gave us because we're followers of Donald Trump. And what you're seeing now is this leftover group that says, we'll follow Trump because we follow Trump. And even when he does things that we don't like, we'll just dismiss that and say he's really doing 3D chess because he's so smart and he's so different. And then he's really in the end going to, come get all the bad guys and do all the good stuff. But there's that's small a group. And the Candace and Tucker people are like out there. And I think Candace Owens, as I said, she's a big figure right now and a very important figure in politics, maybe like the most important figure. It was Tucker Carlson, but right now, I don't know how long it lasts. I think she's carrying the banner, Jim.
Well, look, I think there is, I don't know the proportion of it, but there is the MAGA movement has largely been built around a cult of personality around Trump. And I think, but in terms of the policies that a lot of populist followers of Trump moved to Trump because America first, no more foreign wars, freedom of speech, that was a big thing. The crap around COVID was a big thing, the pushing people and forcing people to do things that they didn't want to do that were actually bad for them, and the smugness and sanctimoniousness of the Democrats with their later versions of DEI and all of that stuff, which they did in the most sanctimonious way, when they turned what was real civil rights movements into guilt tripping, censorious, shut up, racist, movements was really what drove people away. Now, Trump is showing you that he's not anti-war. He's not America first. He's Israel first. He's not free speech. He's going to shut down anything that's critical of Israel. He's not, let's control immigration. Sure, let's control immigration. The border should be controlled better than it was under Biden, no question about it. But he's throwing people out of the country. They're ramming into people with cars. They're arresting American citizens, dragging American citizens off the street and putting them in jail for days or weeks, and this is just a Gestapo that he's created to be intimidate, to be a militarized police presence on the street that's going to, run. And it's not run by Trump. Again, the thing about Trump is that people have to get over it. He's a weak political figure. Stephen Miller is running the domestic politics of the country. Russell Vought is running the domestic politics of the country, and the foreign Miller's and Marco Rubio is running the foreign policy. Trump sits around. Trump doesn't know what he's doing. He's being told what to do. He's being pushed around. He's very indecisive, and he doesn't really want to make a decision. But he'll let people decide, and people will come to say, you should do this. Okay, I'll do that. And then the next day I'll turn around and say, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should. So everybody has to understand how weak and insecure Trump is. And that's always been the case. He talks like a tough guy, and he thinks he's a tough guy, and he thinks everybody's going to do what he says. And he's got power of the executive that he can make a lot of people do what he says. But really, he's not formulating policy. He doesn't understand policy. His only policy is tariffs. And that he got to back off up and back and forth and back and forth. So this is a nasty situation. These people, Stephen Miller and Russell Vought and Marco Rubio, these are nasty, reactionary, right-wing people. They don't give a damn about freedom of speech. They don't give a damn about America first. They are old school, right-wing, racist reactionaries. And they want to take over. They want to reinstall American imperialism in Latin America or wherever they can around the world. They want to go back to the days before we knew about Negroes. I mean, this is they want to go back to the days when everybody knew their place, and this is baloney, and it has to be resisted all around. And they're treating, there's some kind of American identity that's opposed to migration or opposed to immigrants. That's silly and it's crazy. We should be people who should come here legally, and we shouldn't allow 25 million people to come in 3 years or whatever, or 10 million, or just walk across the border. That's true. But, you don't take people who've been here all of their lives and have families and children who are all American citizens and people who are here legally. You don't set yourself up outside of naturalization hearings to people who've been here for 15, 20 years, going to just naturalize, and they go to the naturalization hearing and they get grabbed and thrown out. This is just absurd and ridiculous. People who are good members of their community, and this is what they're doing. So this is all nasty baloney. Everything you were promised under Trump, he didn't care about. He cares about himself. And this is the point. I saw this thing the other day on Breaking Points where Sagar Enjeti was talking about what he's doing to the White House and how many conservatives are very upset about it, because this is an American institution, the White House, and he's building this huge, horrible ballroom, which is bigger than the White House, and he's just destroyed it. He's destroyed a whole wing of the White House, and really it is what he's done to the White House, and what he did with these little plaques under the president, which are like Truth Social blasts. I mean, it's just silly. And what he's done is he's turning it into his house. This is the president's house now. This is Trump's house. This is my house. I'm going to show you what I want to do. So he really is a silly, childish narcissist who is politically ignorant and weak and easy to be pushed around by people. But he's in that position now where he has to make a decision, and if it's he knows it's going to be stupid to make a war with Russia. So should I get out of the war with Russia? Should I not get out of the war? He knows it's going to be a walkover, and it may not be a cakewalk in Venezuela. Should I attack him? Should I not attack him? So every day he's going to be pushed into doing something else, and this is what we're with. This is what we're stuck with now. And the people of the United States, the people who voted for Trump, the people who voted, there's still a cult of personality around Obama. The people.
No King's protests. How about that? What a joke.
The people who voted for Obama and voted for Trump, and the people who hold on to that because they say, "Oh, this guy, if only he could, they would have let him do what he wanted to do." This is baloney. It's baloney for Obama and it's baloney for Trump. They're part of the swamp. They're the oligarchs who are controlled by the unlimited bribery, and that's what they are. And you've got to get over that. But this is a very difficult thing. The political education of the American people is miserable because it's done by Fox and MSNBC. And
I think that the political education that the Americans are getting educated. They're getting educated by the Zionists. They're getting
yeah,
educated by the neocons. They're receiving an education. Sometimes bumping your head is an education. When
that's
they
right.
look at what's happening, they say, "Okay, we want you to deal with inflation." Screw you. Oh, how about healthcare? Yeah, we'll get rid of the subsidies, and a bed situation is already going to get way,
Yeah,
way worse, guys.
yeah,
Wait a minute. You know what I mean? It's like, but good news, Trump, Jim. Trump just signed $1 trillion bill at a time when people can't afford housing, when they can't pay the bills, inflation, everything. He goes on and he does the Joe Biden. He goes on the other night and he tells us how wonderful things are. Things are cheaper. Everything's
yeah,
down. Life is good. Things are wonderful. And it's like, that's just the way that it's a let them eat cake moment that we get from the ruling elite every now and then.
yeah,
When people say, hey, we're not doing so well. What the Democrats do is they say, all you need to do is go to this website. Just click on this and go to the website, and it'll tell you how good you're doing. Read on
yeah,
the website. We got pie charts. We
yeah,
got graphs. Anything you need, read it there, and you will know how well you're doing. Well, Trump doesn't go through all that. He just goes on there and says, let me read you some statistics. That he
yeah,
stumbles and fumbles through the statistics. And it's like, that's what the ruling elite does. When you tell them times are hard, they just say, no, they're not.
yeah,
Excuse me, we got to go give another $1 trillion to the military industrial complex
yeah,
for things that the Russians have proved that shit don't work. The Russians are blowing all that stuff. Hey, send us some more $50 million tanks. Boom, blown to smithereens. How about some more? And in fact, Rubio even admitted it
yeah,
and said, well, we send stuff there and a week later the Russians blow it up. There's no point. But we need another $1 trillion so we can build more stuff that isn't going to do any good. It's just going to get blown up by the Russians in no time flat. But hey, the military industrial complex has to eat. It is a joke. It is a clown show. And I
it's
think
terrible.
it's expressed best in the arguments between Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson. I really believe that all of this stuff is expressed there, because all of this stuff is expressed by people saying we're unhappy with the status quo about this particular issue. And mouthpieces like Shapiro don't just say, let's talk about it. Screw you. You jerk, you idiot. Somebody come in and shut this man down, arrest him. How dare he say these things? That's where the whole thing is expressed, of regular old people saying we're unhappy with the status quo, and they just send some puppet to shout you down and threaten you. And then they tell you, if you want to come into the United States, we got to look at your social media and your email for the last 5 years. They're going to do that to the people. Well, they're already looking at ours. Never mind.
Yeah, that's really unbelievable. They're going to ask you for 5 years of social media, all of your personal information, your addresses for the past 10 years, your wife's and husband's addresses. It's nobody wants to come to the United States. What the United States is isolating itself in the world, and it is killing itself. I mean, this is really bizarre. And again, this is a kind of xenophobia and just exceptionalism that, we don't care about the rest of we're so powerful and almighty that the rest of the world can go fuck off, and we don't want to have anything to do with it. And if they don't like us, that's too bad. JD Vance said about when they say, well, you're blowing people up with ships like that's a war crime. He goes, I don't give a shit what you call it. So, we don't give a shit. They don't give a shit what you call it, whether we're committing war crimes or not. They don't give a shit. And they don't give a shit whether you starve or not. They don't. They'll give only a shit so far as JD Vance gives a shit, because he might want your vote. So he's going to try and keep you on it. It's like the Israelis keep the Gazans on a certain number of calories per day. They want to keep you on enough calories a day so that you'll stay alive to get to the polls or vote.
Or go die in a war for them. That's the best case scenario.
This is you got, and this is what people, again, you're right. This is what people learn from. But the problem is the political system of the country doesn't give them anywhere to go. They're going to bounce back to the Democrats. They got nothing else to do. You can't have a third party in this country that works. It's very, very bad. And so people should be in the streets. People should storm the Capitol. I have nothing against storming. Well, depending on what you're storming it for. I mean, and I don't want to storm the Capitol. That's a setup, the way I think January 6, 2025
Well, it was
2017
mostly FBI agents in the crowd
2021.
anyway. They
Yeah,
stormed their own Capitol.
but we need to have a political movement, and we need to have a political leadership that is able to translate all of this. People knowing they're getting screwed. Look at the farmers in the United States are getting screwed by this crap. And I just saw this thing the other day. It's not just the tariffs; it's the consolidation of the farm input companies, the companies that sell fertilizer and sell equipment. There's 2 or 3. They're raising their prices, so farmers can't make any money because the people they need to buy equipment and fertilizer and seed from are raising their prices because they've all consolidated so much. So, and what are you going to do about that? You need to transform the economic system of the country. And you're not going to do it by building huge. It doesn't mean build $1 billion AI center that's going to take all your electricity and water. You need to build things that produce the things that we need and give people good wages to do that. If you're going to say, oh, we don't want migrants working in the farms, then you're going to have to pay Americans to work in the farms, and you should pay It's right. I don't think we should take in the help to do the bad jobs. We should do it. We should have a way of doing it ourselves. But that means you have to pay. This requires taking control of the capital wealth of the country from people like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and all these greedy Jeff Bezos. This means they should stop. First of all, we have to plan. We have to have a system of economic planning like China does, where we decide what we want to build and we put public money into it.
I would argue this. We do have a system of economic planning, except the planning is done on Wall Street. You know what I mean? That's the thing about it. If you have a system of economic planning where the planning is how can we make sure that everybody eats and people have a house and everybody has health care, or the basics, the people have basic things. We need to plan. Okay. But when Wall Street does the planning, they're going to plan how they can do derivatives and asset-backed securities and credit default swaps and make a fortune. They're going to plan how they can close all of the factories and send them overseas so they can get your job. They're going to plan how they can get rid of your. I'll put it like this. When they cut healthcare and when they cut this thing, that's a way of taking more profits, because all of them, what gets lost is this. Elon Musk, he makes a fortune off government contracts. Here's a guy who went around, Doge, we're going to save the government money. Dude, you got like billions and billions of dollars in government contracts, but for some reason, you won't hand yours in to save the government money. You want to lay off some soccer mom that works for the Department of Environment in Greenbelt, Maryland.
Yeah.
So that we got to save her $80,000, $70,000 a year salary, but not your $5 billion contract with NASA, $4 billion contract with this and that and satellites and everything else. So what we've got is a system where there is planning, but it's the planning by the ruling elite. Everything is for them. We got no rights. We got no First Amendment rights. We vote. Now, let me ask you this. I think this is going to be a dangerous time. It's coming to my attention more and more, and I suspected this, and I predicted this, that as we went into the midterms, these people are going to be challenged. They're going to be challenged by anti-Zionists. There's an anti-Zionist pack that's growing, AZ pack. Yeah. I know people that are running. I know people that are planning on announcing running. I've had people contact me, hey, will you come to my thing? I'm announcing running. There's going to be, both on the right of the left and right don't even apply the way we traditionally knew them in the U.S. anymore. Both Republicans, Democrats, independents, you name it. There's a whole lot of people that are going to be challenging these people. And that's when you really force the machine, because the machine will say, yes, we're a great, a democratic society, and we're a liberal democracy, whatever you want to call it, republic, you name it. But if they wake up and they see a bunch of anti-Zionists and people like the anti-war people, whatever, running that could win and go to Congress, I think they'll shut it down.
Yeah.
Good, Jim.
Yeah. Well, I'm all in favor of, look, I think we do have to take to the streets and take to storming the Capitol. And I just don't know where the political movements to do that are. But I mean, it's true that people are going to challenge them in the primaries, and that's good, and I want to see that. But again, the two parties are controlled, and it's going to be impossible to overthrow their control. You know, and I just don't know. I'm not suspicious because, you know, but wary of the possibility of anybody, you know, coming to the full. You've got to. On the one hand, you got to go outside the party. On the other hand, you can't get anywhere going outside the parties. So it's a very difficult situation, and the economic situation is going to get worse. We're looking at, you know, it can't get any better. There's no, as you say, the planning is done on Wall Street, which is planning for the individual capitalists to enrich themselves. That's what the planning is for. We don't have social planning for the good of society. We have social planning for the enrichment of people who are already, further enrichment of people who are already rich. And people don't understand even the difference of that the difference between thinking socially and thinking in terms of individual enrichment. And the entire society and the capitalist ideology is based on the latter. And that's what people work on. Changing that has to be done, and we have to work on it. Now, the issues of Zionism and war, these are easier to see, and people are going to run against it, and I'm all for it. No war in Venezuela. This is baloney. Got to stop this. No war on Cuba. No war on Russia. You know, no war on Palestine. We got to get out of these things. This is a waste of American lives and treasure that we have no business being in. And, you know, we should be building our own society. So all for America first in that sense. And people will. This is what's going to happen. They're going to be people running in primaries that are going to defeat, I think, if the elections are fair, which is another story, but that are going to defeat some established figures in both parties, and that's what has to happen. But again, and healthcare. I mean, look at what the Republicans are doing with healthcare. With the Democrats, Affordable Act is terrible. It is 100%. It was Obama's Republican Act. He said it was a Republican Act. He said it was Mitch Romney care in Canada, from Massachusetts, and he did it in order to save the private health insurance industry. That's what it is. It's a big subsidy for the private health insurance industry, and it has helped the private self-insurance industry grow. The private health insurance industry is are going to tell the Republicans, you should pass these subsidies because they want those subsidies. American people are not going to be able to pay the premiums if they don't have those subsidies. So the answer to that is not. But the Democrats this is like Gaza. This is an absolute minimum. You must be in favor, really work for, not backing off on it like Bernie Sanders did because my friend Joe Biden got in. You got to hold you got to insist on Medicare for all. You got to insist on your democratic media, whatever the damn it is, with CNBC.
You mean CBS?
Yeah,
with Barry Weiss
on your allied media explaining and promoting Medicare for all, single payer, universal coverage. But then you have to come up with a plan because of the growth of private health insurance industry under the Affordable Care Act. There's millions of people being employed by that now. You have to come up with a plan to employ those people. That you're going to end the private health insurance industry. That's what you have to do, or just reduce it.
1/5 of the 1/5 or something of the GDP, which it shows how bad it is right off that. But 1/5 of the GDP. So, but it shouldn't be 1/5 of the GDP because it's like the money that goes to Ukraine. Most of it is stolen anyway. Most of it has nothing to do with healthcare.
It's going to nothing. The money that goes to the private health insurance isn't giving you health care. It's just enriching the owners of the private health insurance industry. You're not getting any health care from it. I see these people. I don't want the government controlling my health care. Oh, you want United Healthcare controlling your health care? You want Aetna controlling your health care? You want these people controlling your health care? How stupid can you be? No, you don't. You don't want that. You're paying them enormous sums. And the only way you're going to cut the costs and control the costs of this is having a single payer, which controls the costs. And they don't want public for-profit health insurance doesn't want to control costs. They want to increase profits. That's their job, is to increase profits, not control costs. The business model of the health insurance companies is collect as much premiums and deny health care as much as possible. That's their mandate. That's their intrinsic business model mandate, to deny as much health care as possible. What is that? Why do you have those sitting between you and the doctor? You want the government? The government pays. The government will pay. The government doesn't have to make a profit. And the government can tell you, can determine prices, and should determine prices. It's not a market thing. You can't go to the hospital the way you go to the supermarket and say, oh, which can of spaghetti sauce should I buy today? You go to the hospital when you're sick and you need something, and you don't know from one spaghetti, one drug from another, or one surgical. This is something that's not a market situation. You can't sit back and determine, decide which brand of spaghetti you're going to buy. This is ridiculous. So, and that's not what happens. It's that health insurance companies that do it for you now. So this is ridiculous. But again, this is the capitalist ideology. Oh, I know I pay my tax. Has nothing to do with taxes. Forget about taxes. Has nothing to do with taxes. Really, everybody get this straight. The government can pay for this without taking any taxes out of you. Get rid of payroll taxes. Get rid of them. You still get Medicare for all, and you can get Social Security and everything else. Government doesn't have to take taxes for that. We take the money from the wealthy to control inflation and inequality, and to stop the inequality. But we have to think about this, and people got to get on this page. You can't have this. There's no excuse. No excuse. We're the only country in the world, the only advanced industrial country that has medical bankruptcies. People
Well,
dying.
if it's any consolation to you, Bill, to Jim, based on what I've seen recently in Europe, they're about to lose all that stuff too.
Well,
Based on what I've seen in Europe now, they're about to lose it all, because they're going to pretty much screw themselves. They're like taking out loans to go to Ukraine. They're borrowing every dime they can to go to Ukraine. So, based on what I've seen, I think
no. But in Britain, they're trying to undermine the National Health Service.
Go ahead.
But other countries, I think Denmark, the Scandinavian countries, they're not. I don't see them yet doing that, undermining the universal health care the way they have in Britain and the
I just don't think they'll be able to afford it. I think they're going broke. Based on what I've seen, I don't know. I may be wrong, but I think they are in one of the things that's happening as a result of the Ukraine conflict is that they are completely that these European countries are going to become, like economically desolate, that they're pretty much screwed. And we'll see.
We'll see. I don't think that's the case for. Again, it's not the British pound is a sovereign currency. They can pay for everything. That's not a question of the money. These countries can pay for their health care. The governments can pay for their health care. The ones in the Eurozone may have a little different situation because of the euro, but even then, this is they're going to undermine. There's going to be a pressure to undermine the social services of the countries, but it's going to be hard to get away with that in most of these countries anyway. But we can do it here. This is, and they still, we have nothing like that. They have nothing like that. People don't. There's no such thing as medical bankruptcy. There should be no such thing as medical bankruptcy in the country. And as I say, anybody who is opposed to universal health care has to name the persons that they think should die for lack of health care. And if they don't name their own children, their own partners, their own parents, then they are hypocrites and should sit down and shut up. They're just sitting around saying, I don't think this is ever going to happen to me, so I don't care if someone else's parents or someone else's child died for lack of health care because I didn't have money. Because I didn't have money. If you think your child should die of health care, should die for the lack of a dime, then you are honestly in favor of single-payer health care. You're honestly opposed to it. You're honestly in favor of the private health insurance companies. But I want you to say it out loud so that your father and mother and brother and sister and child can hear. If you don't have a dime, if you're short a dime, you can't go to the doctor. Die, too bad. That's capitalism. That's the wonderful way of doing things. So that's the situation. And that's a principle. And that's exactly what we have to be adamant about. This is not about, let's and you have this or that much subsidies for the private. No, there should be zero people who die for lack of a dime, for lack of money. You can die because you're sick. You can die because you're too sick to take care of. You can die because you can't get to the hospital in time. You can die for 1,000 reasons, but not because, I'm short $100. I'm short $1,000. I'm short a dime. Therefore, I can't get the treatment. If that's what you want, then you say it. And I'll challenge anybody who opposes single payer health. Tell me the names. Give me the names. And if it's not your child or your mother or your sister or your wife or your husband, then you're a hypocrite. And you're just sitting around telling me, I don't really believe that's going to happen to me. I don't see myself losing my health care. So if it's okay, but this is what's happening to people in the United States. A lot of people who 2 years ago or 3 years ago never thought it would happen to them are saying, oh my God, this is happening to me. People who make $100,000 were paying $10,000 a year for healthcare. And okay, this is, everybody should be paying for their healthcare. Now, all of a sudden, they're going to pay $25,000 for it. I say, what the hell's going on here? So this is it. Yeah. So if that's you, if you're one of the people who thought when you were paying $10,000, now it's $25,000, what's wrong with this? Well, what was wrong with it before? The same thing that was wrong with it before. It's not okay. It's no more okay for you to. It's no more worse that you now you can't afford it for $25,000 than it was a year ago when someone else couldn't afford it at $10,000. This stinks, and every other country in the world, every other major industrial country in the world has done away with it on principle, and we can and we must. And it's not a matter of money. The money is there.
Well, and it's always another trillion. We just again, Trump runs just like Obama. I'm going to do these wonderful things. We're going to what's he say? I'm going to run, and we're going to cut the Pentagon budget by 8% a year, and that'll give us, over the course of time, 32%. He comes in the first year, 150 billion increase, and then brags about it. Yep. Yes, we've got $1 trillion military. Again, that's always a big scam because you can brag about. Here's the thing. This is how much I spent on the military, which means we have a great military, as opposed to, I'll put it like this. I could go buy an old beat up 1973 Pinto and give somebody $300,000 for it and brag that I got a $300,000 car. I do, but I got a 72 Pinto. You know what I mean? Pinto, right? No matter what, I got a Pinto. Mm-hmm. So my point, or 82, whatever year it is, I got a Pinto, right? So what they do is they pretend that because they're spending a lot of money, that means that they have great weaponry, which I don't want them to have weaponry anyway, because they're starting a lot of wars. Yeah. But all they're doing is he's bragging about the money laundering. When they talk about all the money that's being stolen, we can't send this money to Kiev because it's being stolen. Oh, really? You think that's not happening in the Pentagon, in Lockheed Martin? Kiev is a reflection. Mm-hmm. It is a reflection of the U.S. military-industrial complex. It is exactly the U.S. military-industrial complex.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. What the grifting of Zelensky and his pals off of the American money that's coming in there, that's legally done by the defense contractors in the United States. When they're charging you $1,000 for a hammer, that's a grift. That's stealing. And they do that all the time. And this is the point. American weapons, they're spending a lot and getting fancy boutique weaponry that's also very fragile, that needs a lot of maintenance, that's not going to stand up. So they're not giving you a 73 Pinto. They're giving you a 2026 Bentley, but then you got to drive it on the pot roads, and you know what
they say about Bentleys, right? Yeah. Bentleys and Jaguars now.
Jaguars, yeah.
Buy two of them, because when one's in the shop, you need a second one that actually runs.
Exactly. That's my point. And they got to buy, it's for use in a war. You got to drive it on the pothole roads. You got to drive it on the gravel roads. You got to drive it on unpaved roads. How's that going to work? And then you got to spend all the money, as you say, you're going to have another one. Absolutely. Have another one and have a spare there to get the parts and fix it. And you got to have a bunch of good technicians and good mechanics to fix it. So that's what they're doing. Whereas, Russia and China they're building good weapons. They're building fancy weapons, but they're building also weapons that are for purpose. They will last in a war. They will not. They'll be able to drive over the bridges. They won't be too heavy for the bridges in Ukraine, and they'll be able to take some hits. And it's not going to take $1 million to fix them and get them back on. If they're damaged, to fix them and get them back on the road. So that's the, those are the things that.
Yep. All right. Well, Jim, thank you very much. That's been an hour. We've done another great job of solving problems. We've hit, I think, all the big ones. We got to come back again soon. We got to talk about the state of the U.S. as the mediator. We're not a party to Marco Rubio. We're a mediator. We're the only country that can come in and say, oh, these people that we have nothing to do with are fighting it out. Why don't we try to come in?
Yeah, I know.
Because we're the good guys. We'll talk about that next week. Jim Kavanagh, tell everybody where they can find you online.
On my Substack, Jim Kavanagh's Substack, the polemicist _, on X. Ho ho ho! I guess this is probably our last show before Christmas.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe we got things we might have to talk about. I'm off. All week. I got things. What was I going to say? Whatever. They took off. You usually have the polemicist under yours. I have Patreon. One day it's there. The next day it's not. Thanks everybody. Under your name, it usually says the polemicist. Mine says Patreon. Whatever. At any rate, thanks a lot, everybody. Don't forget. Thank you for all my Patreon members. The people who go to PayPal and buy me a coffee and all that kind of stuff. Thank you very much. If you want to donate, that's wonderful. You have my P.O. box. So anybody wants to send me a Christmas card or anything, there's my P.O. box. Thanks a lot, everybody. Share this on all your social media platforms. Jim and I are out. All right. Thanks a lot, Jim.